Hello folks, welcome back to the Astroforum channel. I never do this, so I don't know how this works. I'm actually live, I think. Live top chat 0 people following. The Psychology of Astrophotography. There's nobody. 5. Does anybody hear me? Is there anybody out there? How does this work? Live chat. Hi folks. Hi folks, can you hear me? Through the microphone. There are 8 people. Yes, Dave can hear me. There is somebody. Can you see me? I don't think you can see me. Wait. Hopefully the camera's working now. Alright, I think I have a little bit of a delay in the chat. Working well, Greg. Thank you very much, Greg, for the feedback. So, yeah, actually this week I was thinking about doing a first live stream because, yeah, first of all, I have something to celebrate with you because I almost have 10,000 subscribers on my channel. So that is, of course, awesome. I wanted to thank you for all the support, for all the feedback that you have been giving me on the channel. It really helped me to improve my astrophotography. So that's the first thing I want to say. So this is actually, I just called in to say I love you. Or is that Stevie Wonder? And yeah, I was also thinking about maybe I can give a presentation on something I usually do not do. So usually I'm talking about gear, usually I'm trying to capture a nice deep sky object in the night sky, and I try to explain to you what my techniques are and hopefully they are useful to you. But lately I also saw these awesome videos on what kind of astrophotographers are out there. And I thought, well, maybe I can talk about that for about maybe 10 to 20 minutes before it gets too boring. Let's see, we have a visual, now we see you too, and there is a camera. Thank you Adam, thank you Dave, thank you Ivar. So we have 11 persons here. Yeah, great to know that it is working actually. And so I wanted to talk about the psychology of astrophotography. So not talking about gear, not talking about new techniques for this moment, but just what is the mindset when you engage in your astrophotography hobby actually. And the reason I am doing that is actually twofold. So first of all, I saw a lot of interesting videos on how astrophotographers behave, or what kind of astrophotographers are you. From I think Dylan O'Donnell and also Trevor from Astro Backyard. And that was very funny, but it mainly focused on behavioral things astrophotographers do, like re-uploading your picture 1000 times on Astrobin. But I thought it would also be nice to approach this topic from a psychological mindset. So what kind of mental mindset do you have as an astrophotographer? And hopefully you're not too bored. But I was thinking about just these kind of topics. So can we actually talk about our hobby? So what is astrophotography? And you can say, hey Wido, astrophotography is just this ordinary hobby, right? So you just engage in astrophotography. You go outside, you watch the stars, you watch the planets. You feel that you are this big, a small part of this wonderful big universe we are in. And of course, that's a wonderful casual hobby to engage in. But what I wanted to say is that astrophotography, when you are really getting a little bit deeper into astrophotography, it can become this passion or even an obsession. So I wanted to talk about that. And then also I wanted to show you different kinds of mental mindsets that you might experience when you execute astrophotography as a hobby. So we can talk about what kind of astrophotographer are you in terms of, not in terms of skills, not in terms of gear, but in terms of mental mindset. And of course you can also say, why does it matter? Because Astroforum, you should talk about new techniques and astro gear and how to post-process pictures. And you are absolutely right. I'm also going to do that in all of my other videos, but I thought this was nice. Just let's see if we can also look at the mental aspect of astrophotography. And I wanted to close with what can you actually do to stay engaged in the hobby. So let's see, how many people are we? Oh, we have Princess Luna. You can see me on camera, so that's nice. Oh, and this is the first time I'm doing this, guys, so, and girls. So apologies for the Dutch accent and apologies for the mediocre voice, the microphone. It's just a cheap microphone. I will change that for a decent one. I now wanted to ask you a question. Maybe what is your biggest challenge or what is your biggest frustration that you have experienced so far in your astrophotography hobby? So please leave your comment in the chat. So what is your major, maybe the major challenge you had to overcome, or what is the major frustration that you experienced during astrophotography while executing astrophotography? Let's see. And I'm running a little bit behind on my chat, so I will just continue and we'll just watch the chat while I am presenting this. So, what is your major challenge or frustration? They are also here on the slide, so let me know in the chat. And I think I want to answer the first question. So what is astrophotography exactly? And I think we usually start out with some binoculars, maybe a nice telescope, and you engage in some visual astronomy. So I know that I bought a pair of binoculars for 250 euros. It was really awesome. I went outside and the first close-up of the moon, I was really blown away by that visual image. And also I looked at the Pleiades and of course the planets. And then my next step was actually to buy a Celestron 102 SLT. An LS mount, just like a 400-500 euro or dollar setup. So I could also engage in some automated tracking, and I was looking just visually at the moon and the planets. And I think you can experience this wonderful hobby where you are just doing some visual astronomy. You are realizing that the planets are really out there. We are really part of this solar system, the Milky Way, and there are even galaxies outside of our Milky Way that we can observe. So I know the first time that I saw the Andromeda galaxy through a small refractor, I was completely blown away just thinking about, hey, there are actually other galaxies out there in this big universe. And so I think maybe most of us started out like this. So let's see if there is anything in the chat. This the biggest frustration for Fire still plays. When my laptop does a Windows update and cancelling my captures. Yeah, that is very frustrating. When you have some kind of Windows update, but also sometimes when you have a software update. And then things stop working basically. I had this a few times with Sequence Generator Pro. where I updated the software, and then my wizard was failing on me, so I could not actually get into what's the word? So I could not actually find objects in the night sky because of that. Let's see. Well, I'm just starting to get my gear, so with my salaries, I don't know yet what kind of astrophotographer I am. Well, you will find out soon enough, Heinz. Princess Luna says the biggest challenge for me is carrying all the super heavy stuff outside. Yes, yes. I never thought of these things. Thank you, Kiko. Clouds and rain at the moment. Yeah, that's also a big frustration when you live in, I don't know, I'm living in the Netherlands, of course, so we have had, I think, 2 straight weeks of clouds. And that's pretty normal in autumn. So let me get back to the presentation. So I was talking about some visual astronomy where you can engage in, and then it's just a casual hobby. But when you are going to get into astrophotography, I would argue that it can quickly become a passion, or even when we are not careful, it can become an addiction. And I will talk about that later on, but mainly because there are so many challenges and sometimes also frustrations that we need to overcome. So let's talk about the challenges. I think, Luna, you are already, or was it Kiko? One of you said that, you have to carry that stuff outside and set it up. And when you're seriously getting into astrophotography, of course, you have a more heavier mount and you have a heavier telescope. You have to carry that outside, you have to set it up, you have to polar align. So yeah, of course, this is physically challenging for people to do that. But I wanted to get more into the mental challenges as well. So mentally, it is also challenging, I would say, because when you get into astrophotography, you have to learn so many new things. So first of all, you have to know what polar alignment is, right? So you have to set up your mount, you have to learn how to polar align your mount, then you have to learn how to track objects in the night sky. And then soon enough, of course, you will also be engaging in some guiding with an extra scope and an extra camera. So you have to learn PhD2 guiding, for instance. You have to learn how to take long exposure pictures. And this is only capturing deep sky objects. So I'm not even talking about post-processing, stacking and post-processing all of these pictures you are going to take. So you also have to learn maybe Deep Sky Stacker, maybe PixInsight, maybe Photoshop. So all of these things are, of course, mentally challenging. So let's see if you can relate to this. So Netherlands in October, go figure. Yeah, of course. So I hope we will have at least 1 or 2 clear nights. Hello from cloudy Poland. This is Stigar. Hi Stigar. Welcome here on the Astroform channel. Thanks for tuning in. And Ivar said, I had this motivational low. I really didn't want to image, as I felt I never achieved the quality what I see everyone posting on Facebook. Yeah, that's also something I want to get into. I have to maybe get into this presentation some more. I will talk about that, Ivar. And also, my main advice would be, don't compare your own astrophotography pictures when you're just starting out with some of the other pictures that are out there on the internet, because some people are engaged in the hobby for maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years already. So always compare your picture to your last picture. You have to compare it to the picture you took before. Your own pictures. You have to compare your own work with your own work. I don't know. This English is failing on me, but I would say that's a very important point, especially when you just start out. So it can be mentally challenging. I was talking about that, and also of course frustrating. So let's say frustrating in terms of high learning curves. So high learning curves meaning that you have to learn all these things. So you have to learn how to polar align, how to work with different kinds of software to guide, to capture your astronomy pictures, to post-process them, and that can sometimes also be frustrating, right? When some of the software doesn't connect, for instance, to your gear. Or maybe you have just a physical failure where a cable is broken. I had this multiple times. When I was trying to guide with my with PhD2, and for some reason my camera wouldn't connect to PhD2, and in the end it was just a broken cable. And of course, being in the Netherlands, the main frustration is of course clouds. I'm not talking about light pollution even, I'm used to that living in the city, but clouds here are of course, especially in autumn time, this is really terrible. So I'm just hoping for a couple of clear nights until December so I can show you something on my channel, at least in terms of astrophotography pictures. Let's see, maybe one more. Roel says, I have stopped looking at Facebook for that reason. And Daniel says, never delete your data and keep on reprocessing all data for better results. Yeah, I can completely relate to that, Roel and Daniel. Because I think I started 6 years ago, and unfortunately AstroBin has crashed. So I cannot show you these very first pictures I took. But I can guarantee you they were very bad, they were ugly, they were nowhere near where I am right now. And where I am right now is still not on a, I would say it's an intermediate level, right? So I have been in the hobby for 6 years, but some other folks have been in the hobby for 20 years. Or they spent a lot more, they invested a lot more time in the hobby, so they really know a lot more on how to post-process pictures. So I would say, don't be like demotivated by that. Try to always take your own pictures, look at your own pictures, and every time you learn something new, the first time you learn how to guide, so your stars are now nice and round in the picture. That's a nice step. The first time you you know how to process, you calibrate your flats and your darks and your bias frames, and you have a clean stack. You should celebrate these kind of things because actually you have improved yourself. So try to focus on your own skills and building your own skills. And I would also argue that because of these challenges and because of all of these frustrations, actually astrophotography can be extremely gratifying. So when you finally have a good night and you are able to auto guide and you are able to take that long exposure picture, and you are able to stack them and post-process them and come up with a nice final picture you can actually share on Facebook or on Instagram or on AstroBin or whatever kind of social media. Maybe your friends and family on WhatsApp. You have also this extremely gratifying feeling. And maybe you are going to paint me as a psychologist. I have studied psychology actually, so hope you won't hold that against me. But actually I would say astrophotography, when we look at Maslow's pyramids of human needs, then you could actually say that this astrophotography we are engaging in is a highly creative hobby where we try to improve on our own skills. And Maslow actually calls this trying to achieve your full potential. And actually there's actually nothing wrong with achieving your full potential, but there are some caveats, is that the word? Like some things you have to look out for, because I think you can also be involved too much and then things can go wrong. So let's go to the next slide and I will check. Hey, Ray. Ray's astrophotography in the house. Everybody check Ray's last live stream of Mars. It's really incredible. He has a very big... Ray, you have a Celestron C14 Edge HD, I think, eh? So Ray really knows how to zoom in with a long focal length, how to zoom in on Mars and take the most incredible... he has the most incredible live views and the most incredible Mars pictures on Instagram. So if you want to know anything about planetary imaging, go to his channel actually. Alright, so let's get on with this. So what is then the main threat, or the main, maybe not threat, but the main caveat you can run into? Yeah, of course, you all know this is the model of positive effect. Actually, the circleplex model. Just kidding. But if you let me just explain it. So you have the vertical axis, and you can say, hey, how much energy do I have when I engage in my astrophotography hobby? So on some nights you will have some low energy, on other nights you will have a lot of energy, right? So that's on the vertical axis. And on the horizontal axis you can say, hey, sometimes things go wrong and I'm in this negative mood. I'm frustrated because things don't work out. And on the other hand, you can also feel really positive about your hobby. Some other nights everything goes right. You are tracking, you are capturing your pictures, you have a clear night without a moon, that kind of stuff. And you feel enthusiastic, you feel excited about the hobby. So that's basically the quadrants you're seeing right here. And then I would argue, when we follow the arrows, that first when you start out, I would say you are this casual astrophotographer or even a visual astronomer. So you go outside, you take some binoculars or a simple telescope and maybe an LS mount. You're going to observe the night sky, and it is not so difficult to learn how to do that. Then you can have this casual, positive hobby, right? Where you sometimes go outside, you set up your gear within 10 minutes, and then you start observing and you have a good time. And a lot of people stay on that kind of level, and this is nothing wrong with that. That's completely fine. But I think when you're watching my channel, or maybe also Ray's channel here, I think when you get into astrophotography, things get quickly more challenging, like I said before. So you have to learn all this new stuff. So you are going to spend more and more time, and you are going to spend more and more mental energy or cognitive energy, because you have to learn all these things, into astrophotography. And I would argue that it would not be bad actually to do that, because at least from my experience during my first years, I made several steps. So I learned how to auto guide, I learned how to take long exposure pictures, I learned how to calibrate my stacks with darks and flat frames, I learned how to post-process a little bit, and then I was into that, I would say maybe 1 or 2 or 3 years even, where every time I learned something new, and it was really engaging. It was really motivating to do that, and every time I saw some improvement in my pictures, and I was really happy about that. And I would say during that time I felt engaged in the hobby, so I was experiencing positive emotions. I was motivated to set up my gear, I was motivated to post-process. Sometimes I completely lost track of time when post-processing. And I was this engaged person. So I don't know if you can relate to that. Let's see, is there some other chat here? The biggest thrill is a good test picture, says Roel. When you see your DSO in your field of view, and you're right. It depends when it comes to looking at other pictures. Yeah. So actually, I think that is very important. So one aspect of staying engaged is trying to look at your own improvements, and not trying to look at or compare your pictures to other astrophotographers that are in the hobby for maybe 20, 30 years, right? And then I think we can also fall into the trap of maybe becoming a little bit addicted. So addicted, I mean that you are, at first you can make these huge steps, right? When you are learning how to auto guide, you will have better pictures, for instance. But when you are maybe in the hobby for multiple years, then it becomes more difficult to improve yourself. And then the risk is that you are going to spend more and more time on astrophotography actually. And maybe even an excessive amount of time, and maybe you can also develop this compulsive drive to try to improve yourself, and it gets more difficult to improve yourself each time. And maybe you buy also more gear, so you will buy a focuser for your telescope, you will buy maybe a more expensive mount, more expensive telescopes. But I think maybe the gains you are then making is maybe a little bit less big, so they are more incremental as compared to those first years. And then I think there might be a trap where you maybe spend a lot of time or an excessive amount of time on the hobby. You're not experiencing these huge gains anymore, and you will actually maybe become addicted a little bit, and you mainly experience maybe negative emotional states because you want to become the best basically, or you want to get an A pod or whatever. So then maybe it becomes an obsession. So I would say watch out for that. Always try to stay in that engaged column. And I would say in addiction, when you're starting to experience more negative emotions than positive emotions when engaging in your hobby, of course, eventually you will lose your energy and you run the risk of burning out. And I would say watch out for that. Try to stay engaged in your hobby. So what I wanted to ask you is also, what kind of astrophotographer are you? Are you this casual person that goes outside, sets up his gear and then or her gear and just enjoys the night sky? Or are you this person who's really engaged right now in the hobby? Or can you relate a little bit on the addiction of astrophotography, where you maybe spend a lot of time post-processing trying to improve your pictures and it doesn't work out, for instance? Or maybe you have gone through all of these steps and you are now, maybe you have a little bit of less energy to engage in the hobby. So let me know in the chat. Let's see. Miroslav Stigar, I hope I mispronounced your name probably. He says that there are many areas of astrophotography to engage in. Yeah, that's really true. So you can also switch it up. You can do some planetary imaging when there are nice comets within visual range. Of course, you can also go comet hunting. And you can do deep sky astrophotography basically. So there are a lot of different things you can do to keep the hobby excited. I think that's a good point, Miroslav, I think. And then John is in the house from Sydney, Australia. Hi John, thanks for joining us. We are talking about the psychology of astrophotography, so I hope you are interested in that topic. Oh, you are Astro Tuvok actually. I know you from Instagram, but I don't know you as Miroslav. I'm sorry, Miroslav. More comments? Ben C. from Australia. Hi, mate. So Alexander says he is something between engaged and addicted. I would say I can relate. I can relate to that. Sometimes I'm post-processing in the weekend, and I really think about, hey, let's post-process for maybe half an hour or 1 hour, and then I look at the clock and I see that maybe the whole afternoon is mostly gone. And that's not a problem, of course, when it happens one time, but when it happens a lot of times, yeah. You can, of course, then fall into the trap of spending an excessive amount of time on the hobby. Yeah? So yeah, let's see if there are more interesting stories from you. So Ben C is engaged. And he's following Sean from Visible Dark. Yeah, a lot of great astrophotography tutorials there. And Princess Luna is still engaged, so that's great. Great to be engaged, and that is also what I wanted to talk about. So how can we stay engaged in this hobby? So maybe to emphasize this a little bit, so I know that when people are engaged, I know this from the psychology literature actually, this is a good thing, because you tend to be more proactive, you tend to be more dedicated in your hobby. And what is interesting with engaged people is that they usually have this rich life. So they do not only engage in this hobby of ours, but they also have a lot of social relationships, maybe other hobbies they engage in. And another important thing is that they mainly focus on improving themselves. And because they do that, they are more likely to stay in the hobby. And maybe to emphasize the addiction, so what I said before, you have this compulsive drive to excel when you are addicted. You put an excessive amount of energy and time into your hobby, but you are not necessarily experiencing these positive emotions. And in the end, because you have these negative emotions, you find it harder maybe also to reach out and to seek for feedback from others, because you don't feel like it. And in the end, this doesn't really help you to improve on your work basically, and also you are then prone to burn out. And when you burn out, you will have this low level of energy. It's maybe hard for you to engage in the hobby. Maybe you have become a little bit cynical, and maybe also you lack some self-efficacy. So maybe the work you did before, maybe you find it hard to accomplish a similar level. And I also want to emphasize, you can be in different phases. You can now be engaged, you can be addicted, you can be a little bit burned out. So yeah, what I wanted to end with actually is, what can we do to stay engaged and not fall into the trap of addiction or negative emotions? And I think I already spilled the beans a little bit by answering some of the questions you had. So I would say, and this is the final slide. So I would say the most important thing when you are getting into this hobby, getting deeper into this hobby, is to focus on improving your own techniques, improving your own work, and try not to compare it to other people. And I know this is so hard because everybody is sharing all of his or her pictures on Instagram, on Astrobin, on Facebook. And you can fall into the trap, right, when you are uploading your Andromeda galaxy, your first or second picture. Of course, Astrobin or Instagram is going to recommend other posts showing you similar Andromeda galaxies, for instance. And of course, there will be people that are already into the hobby for 10 or 20 or 30 years. And like I said before, the main thing I would say is, do not compare. Try not to compare your work to those people who are already so experienced. But instead, just go for another astrophotography session. Go out there, take another picture, process it, and see if you can get some improvements on your own work. So that's very important. The internal locus of control, they call it in psychology. But focus on your own work. The other thing is also, I would say, knowing when to call it a day. So, like I said before, it happens to me sometimes when I am engaging, especially in post-processing, that I'm starting during early in the day, and then I spend hours and hours on post-processing. And actually, I would say that a lot of times those last 1 or 2 hours, they don't add so much to the quality of the picture anymore. So sometimes it's better just to leave your picture after maybe 1-2 hours of processing and just do something else with your time, and then come back to that picture maybe on the next day or maybe next week when you are fresh, and you can start to improve again, instead of just continuing all day long. And that also relates to this other point I wanted to make. So keep an eye out for other things in your life, basically. So I know you're not only an astrophotographer. You probably also have some family, maybe some work, or even when astrophotography is your professional work, I would still recommend talking to friends and family that are not into the hobby. So you can focus your mind on different things in your life, and maybe even engage in some other nice hobbies, running, cycling, whatever. And actually what happens often to me is when I'm doing other things, so when I'm running or when I'm cycling or talking to, actually doing my work as a teacher, when I'm teaching, then all of a sudden, woof, I get this creative insight. So when I'm not thinking about astrophotography, then often all of a sudden I get a new idea on how to improve on my post-processing, for instance. So I don't know how to explain that. I would say yeah, it's basically when you're not thinking about it, you can actually come up with new ideas. It sounds a little bit counterintuitive, but I would say give it a try. And the final thing that really keeps me motivated is, of course, also you. You as my people who follow me on Instagram and on YouTube, of course. You ask me a lot of questions, and most of you are really engaged in the hobby, and that also helps me to stay engaged in astrophotography and to try new things. And of course you can seek these kind of people and resources online, on YouTube, on Instagram, but you can also look offline to maybe a nice astronomy club in your neighborhood. Look around you, see if there are some people or groups of people you can hook up with who are really excited about the hobby, because I really believe that when you are enthusiastic and you're talking to other people who are enthusiastic, this enthusiasm really spills over, and this motivational state really spills over to you. And it really helps you to stay motivated and excited when you reach out to others. So anyway, this was a little bit what I wanted to present to you. So I hope you found this useful. And I'm also close to the 10k people who support me on YouTube. So thank you a lot for subscribing to my channel, and thank you a lot for following me. And then let's take a final look at some of the chats you have. So you chat a lot. Sorry, I forgot to check it. So let's see. Do you know something about the Ioptron Smart EQ Pro? No, I don't. I'm sorry. So somewhere between engaged and addicted, Adam says. Designing my own power distribution unit. Wow, that's really nice. I would say the Skywatcher Hack 5 Pro. That's how I started. Yes, Ben, I started with the Celestron AVX. I think the Hack 5 Pro and the AVX, they are good starter mounts actually. And maybe also the Ioptron SEM25P. I would say these are decent mounts. They also can carry up to 10 kilos or 20 kilograms. And for astrophotography, you have to divide that payload capacity by, I would say, in half. So it will allow the AVX or the Hack 5 will allow for like a small refractor to put on that mount. And you can really accurately track objects in the night sky. So that's nice. So Alexander says, if somebody is interested in 2-year progression from 2018 onwards, when he was 13, he wants he has a Flickr account to show what his progression is. So that's nice. Nick says the hobby is great, but the clouds are definitely annoying. I can relate to that. And Nebula Photos. Hey, your Nebula Photos. I forgot your name. No mount, no camera, no problem. And thanks for joining this presentation. And Alexander, the cheapest mount I found was the Ioptron Smart EQ Pro. Okay, yeah, I'm sorry, Alexander, I cannot give you some feedback on that because I never use it. So anyway. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for listening to my psychology babble. It was not about astro gear. It was not about post-processing techniques this time, but just like looking at the mental state, how you experience your hobby as an astrophotographer. I hope it was a little bit useful and a little bit entertaining to follow this. And thanks for watching. Thanks for watching my other videos and channels. And stay safe, of course, in these challenging times. Stay healthy. And hope to see you again next week. And I promise I will talk about some gear or some post-processing technique again, and not only about psychology. But I think it is important sometimes to also look at how we actually experience and engage our hobby from a mental point of view or a psychological point of view. So anyway, hope you found this useful, and thanks a lot. Stay safe, stay healthy, and See you next time. Clear skies. Bye bye.